All right, all right. Well, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to see you here today. So, thank you for joining us for a webinar today on purposeful prioritization, empowering managers to master time management. So, our focus today is really going to focus in the management experience and how to be strategic, and to share a little bit about Management Cues, the company that is hosting today's webinar. We are a company that's dedicated to management training and leadership development, but we do it in a unique way. We're scientifically proven to work, and we capture and measure performance as we're training throughout our training experience, which makes us a little bit unique because we deliver above that generic theoretical approach. And we really take an interest in getting to know our managers and getting to know what their barriers to success are. So with that said, let's go ahead, let's get started. So if you haven't met me before, I'm Dr. Myra Austin. I'm also the CEO and founder of Management Cues, and I am incredibly curious about the manager's experience. And in my career, that was part of what led me to this point in specializing in these areas, and areas like the ones we will be training on through this 45-minute webinar today. So I am happy to be there, be here, just like the slide says. And I'm happy to share some insights of what I've learned along the way and what has been proven to work. So let's go ahead, let's get into it. So today we're going to cover how to audit the madness around time management, how to narrow and provide focus for our managers out there. And as we go through this, feel free to share your experiences. Feel free to, call out a light bulb moment or ask a question. So I'll be keeping an eye on chat. I'll be keeping an eye on our YouTube feed as well, if there's any chatter out there. And we're going to talk about prioritization with purpose. Kind of redefining how we look at what we do, because we do so much as managers. As managers, we not only are leading, we are also executing. As managers, we're not just inspiring and motivating, we're also keeping track of everything, right? So all of these things are true of management, and sometimes prioritization and time management get bundled in with everything that we handle, and we don't focus on refining it. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about systems that actually work specifically for managers. One of the things that Management Cues does a little bit different is we only focus on the management function and the leadership function, and we look at creating frameworks around that actually work in real life, in real time, right away. So we're going to talk about leading by example and what that has to do with prioritizing and time management. We're going to do a quick live case study within the 45-minute webinar, and then we're going to talk about accountability and close it out. Okay, so here we go. So for starters, I think it's important for us to recognize the mental shift that has to happen around time management. So one of those things that needs to absolutely happen is to distinguish between being busy and being productive, right? So busyness for a manager shouldn't be a badge of honor, right? So we shouldn't feel good because we're so busy, and we shouldn't be pushing people away because we're so busy, right? Because then there's an absence of prioritization. So being a manager doesn't mean being overwhelmed. So I think that it's important to know, like, am I being strategic enough? Am I being impactful enough? Or am I just busy? Right. And so start to think in terms of those shifts. So here are some things that are unique to managers and time management specifically. So being a manager means knowing what matters, when to act, and how to protect your focus. So that's being strategic, right? That's really capturing those areas that are aligned with the type of role and responsibility that you have. So what does that mean, right? Because it's easier said than done. So what it means is prioritizing with purpose. It means leading without burnout. It means turning chaos into clarity. So if your management muscle isn't doing this, then that's where we need to kind of shift some areas. Okay, so let's keep going here. So distinguishing what time management should be for you as a manager is important. So management is a tool for managers in the same way that a compass is a tool for a navigator. So think about that for a second. Is time management for you right now a compass, like it would be for a navigator? And that is most definitely a yes or no answer. So for those of you who feel comfortable in chat, I'd love to hear a yes or a no and be honest, right? In chat, share with me. Is time management for you right now a compass in your workflow? So as you think about that and answer in chat, keep this in mind. It doesn't just help you get through the day. It helps you lead with direction, clarity, and intention, right? So there's a purpose behind the time management tool. And I think part of it is seeing it as a tool, right? So there's a key distinction that managers should be making between being busy and being effective. And it breaks down to these areas. Busy is attending every meeting, even when you're not needed in it. Thank you for participating. So constantly checking emails and messages throughout the day. So think about your habits. Think about what you really do right now, right? And some of these are going to sting a little. That's part of that mental shift. Okay. So welcome that little bit of a sting if you're doing the busy part. It's multitasking during one-on-ones and team check-ins. It's reacting to every issue as it arises. It's making to-do lists, but rarely prioritizing them. So keep this in mind. The to-do lists are great. Are you prioritizing them? And are you prioritizing them correctly, which we're going to get into? It's spending time putting out fires instead of spending time preventing them. It's saying yes to every request to be helpful. It's ending the day exhausted and unsure of what you actually accomplished and whether you made an impact. So if any of those in the busy column stung a little, feel free to share if you're willing to be a little vulnerable. Share which one stung the most, right? And which one you're doing right now. Now let's look at being effective and the difference, right? Being effective is delegating or skipping non-essential meetings. It's batching emails and setting boundaries around availability. It's being fully present during one-on-ones and using that time to coach or unblock. It's removing the barriers in the path, right? It's anticipating and solving problems before they escalate. It's prioritizing tasks based on urgency and importance. It's building systems so that teams are running without micromanagement, right? So micromanagement is a big indicator of whether things are going right or whether they're going wrong, right? It is a red flag. It's protecting time for strategic thinking and reflection. Let me tell you, managers, your reflection, that time to reflect, that's where the solutions come. That's where the risk mitigation happens. So when you're not creating time for that, you're not managing your time appropriately. It's ending the day clear on progress made towards goals. It's being clear of the impact you've made, right? So we've got some chatter and we have a manager who's saying, I try for it to be, but there are weeks where I lose sight of its importance, right? It's making to-do lists is a stinging point for this manager, but rarely prioritizing them. And that's because we're in a rush. So very real, really honest sharing helps us really be more impactful and more effective versus pretending like being busy is the same thing as being effective, which it is very much not the case. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep exploring where we land when we're looking at these time management components. Okay, so now because we only have 45 minutes, we're going to break into steps how to audit this madness, how to really encapsulate time management in a simple way so that you have at least a starting framework to work with. Okay, so here we go. So where is your time really going? So here's what I want you to frame as managers. It's time for us to audit and identify our time thieves. And as managers, I promise you, because there's so much on our plate, we will always have some time thieves. So we have to audit in a recurring basis, okay? So identify misaligned priorities is what we're going to do. And we're going to find opportunities to lead more effectively, because when you have a role of management, you're working on your capacity to lead. That is a sign and an indicator that you're actually growing within your function and creating more of an impact. Okay, so here we go. Ready? You're going to get a guide that I emailed to you. Okay, so I will say this, you're going to get a guide. So you don't have to memorize this stuff. You're also going to get a copy of this deck. So that checklist will help you audit yourself and help others audit themselves as well. Okay, so focus on taking it in. You don't have to memorize it. I'll get you all the tools post webinar. Okay, so where do you want to start? Here's where you want to start. Time tracking and awareness. Do you have it? Are you doing it? Are you thinking of the role and impact on the alignment between you, your team, and the organization? Are you managing meetings? Because meetings are time suckers unless they're very well designed and lend a very clear purpose. Are you thinking about the efficiency around your communication as it relates to time management? Are you looking at tasks and priorities separately? Because they're separate, they're not one and the same. Okay, and we'll talk about that. And are you thinking of the cognitive load and energy around how you're managing this and what it's doing to you as a human being? Because I always say this, and I say it in training, we are not robots. We are humans, and there is an impact. And the more awareness we have around that impact, the more effective we become. And are you planning weekly and creating time for reflection? It is a must have, not a like to have that time blocked out. Okay, so here we go. We're going to get into the audit. Buckle in. So this is our first section, time tracking and awareness. And this is what you're going to audit for. Did I track my time at least 2 to 3 days in 30-minute blocks? Can I clearly see where my time is going? Meetings, emails, administrative tasks, coaching, strategy. Do I know which tasks only I can do and which can be delegated? Okay, and you would be checking these boxes as you go. Auditing the role and impact alignment. Are at least 60 to 70% of my hours spent on high value role aligned activities like team development, strategy, decision making. Keep in mind, these are the high value activities for a manager. So any manager in any management role who isn't spending enough time in this area is not being impactful, right? So think about that math. Am I spending too much time on tasks that someone else could do with guidance or training? That's a yes or no question. Do I regularly review whether my calendar reflects my priorities? Keep in mind, tasks are separate from priorities, and I'll keep repeating that because it's super important to time management. Okay, meeting management. This is one of my favorite sections because I find that meetings are super wasteful unless they're very well designed and very well facilitated. So did I attend meetings that didn't require my input or leadership? Meaning, did you have to make decisions in that meeting? Yes or no? Could any meeting have been an email or an async update? Do I have at least 2 to 3 meeting free blocks per week for deep work? That deep work is what lends to strategy and impact, right? So it has to be calculated in. It's not a like to have, it's a must have in your schedule, in your workflow. Communication efficiency. Am I reacting to every email, Slack, DM immediately? Think about this. Think about your behavior. Think about how you feel around communication. Is it a habit of yours to have to respond right away? And why is that, right? Get to know yourself at a deeper level in terms of behavior. Do I have scheduled times to check and respond to messages? Do you block out at the beginning or at the end of the day to respond to things? Or are you constantly moving back and forth? Do I clearly communicate my availability and boundaries with my team? And boundaries are important if you're going to be effective and if you're going to be impactful. Task and priority management. Am I using a clear system to track and prioritize my tasks? Right? And this could be like the Eisenhower matrix or task batching, which we're going to touch on and we're going to do some exercises around today. Do I start my day with the 1 to 2 clear priorities, not just a long to-do list? Because if all you have is a to-do list, you're only focusing on tasks, not priorities. Do I revisit and adjust priorities when unexpected tasks arise? That's taking the time to do that and rework it in your workflow. Cognitive load and energy, so important. We forget our needs, our biological needs, and we forget that we are wired as human beings to only be able to tolerate so much, right? So here's the thing. Are you thinking about this? Am I scheduling high focus work during my peak energy hours? So think about, when are you most productive? I know that for me, from 5 in the morning to 9 in the morning, I can knock anything out. I'm fresh. I'm also more creative. I know that about myself, right? So if I want to take on something that needs to be prioritized, I do it in that time space because I know that that's where I'm going to get the most out of what I have to bring to the table. Do you take breaks to recharge, or do you power through the burnout? That is a bad habit, and it's behavioral. And we adopt that in the workforce so frequently, especially in the US. Do I feel mentally clear or constantly overwhelmed? And you're only able to pick mentally clear or constantly overwhelmed, right? Narrow it down and be very honest with yourself. Okay, weekly planning and reflection, such a key component of success. Do I set aside time each week to plan, reflect, and reset? Have I scheduled time for leadership development, coaching, and strategic thinking? Do I regularly ask, is this the best use of my time as a manager? So important to ask yourself that, because it forces you to pause and think about whether you're actually making a difference with what you're doing or not. So there is a scoring around this. And so, like I said, you're going to get the checklist so you can do this slowly and think about it with care. But here's the scoring and how it works. If you checked fewer than 12 boxes, you may be operating in busy mode. So it's time to prioritize small shifts this week to get back in control of your time. Okay. And I'm going to send you that list. So make sure to score yourself and be absolutely honest. Okay. Here we go. Let me know if you found that interesting. This is a very effective way to begin to audit your time. So give me a yes or no in chat if you felt like that was helpful. And again, you're going to get this audit list. So prioritization with purpose. You set the tone. You avoid burnout, yours and your team's. You can't do it all. You can't. Nobody can. And you shouldn't. The most important part of that is that you should not. You should not take everything on yourself. Better results equals less chaos. And that's why prioritization is so critical. So let's take a look at what's happening in our brain from a neuroscience perspective and why prioritization matters. Every decision you make, big or small, uses mental energy. So whether it's something simple, whether it's an easy task, whether it's a complicated project, you're still using up energy. And the more decisions you face, the more you drain your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's responsible for logic, planning, and self-control. This is why it's important to distinguish between task and prioritization, because it's like a battery. You're using it up anyway. So really, if you want to be honest with yourself, some of what you're using it on is wasteful, and some of what you're using it on is impactful. So you want to make sure that you look at that and that you're focusing on the right things at the right time in the right way, so that that energy isn't just going to things that aren't going to make an impact. So decision fatigue is something that managers experience quite often when they're not disciplined around time management or lack awareness around the impact that it has or the effect that it has. So when your brain is overloaded with choices, its ability to make high quality decisions declines over time. So you become less and less effective when you're experiencing decision fatigue. So what this can lead to in a workplace, in a workforce environment, is impulsive choices, avoidance or procrastination, You begin to rely on shortcuts instead of thoughtful strategy because you're tired and you don't want to make decisions anymore. And you feel like that's a burden. And part of that is because you're not managing your time right. If you spend your day making unprioritized reactive decisions, your brain will be too drained to lead effectively when it actually matters. How's that for a kicker? Right? So think about this. You're using your energy on things that may not actually count. And that's why it's important to pause. That's why it's important to step back, right? So let's continue to explore kind of the impact from a neuroscience perspective. Okay, so cognitive overload is something that we actually have measured through client case studies. It's also something that we've measured in practice, and that when we design training, we incorporate into what we do, because even training has its limit, and it runs out of effectiveness if we're not considering our managers, our training participants' cognitive load. So too much information, too many tasks, and unclear priorities overwhelm the brain's working memory. What this does is that it causes for focus to be harder to achieve. It's harder to organize tasks. It's harder to think strategically, and it's harder to regulate emotions like staying calm under pressure. So if you are short with people, if you lose your temper, and you're feeling overwhelmed, chances are that your cognitive overload is at its max, right? So without clear prioritization, your brain ends up spinning, creating stress, confusion, and inefficiency for you and your team, right? So when we're managers, when we're leaders, what we do, how we show up, how we take up space impacts everybody around us. And because we have authority around decision making, that's when things become a domino effect. And so we want to be careful. And again, that's why prioritization and time management is not a like to have muscle. It's a must have, and you have to practice, discipline it, and strengthen it. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, so now we're going to break it down to systems that actually work and effective tools that you can use and test immediately after this webinar today, if you'd like, this week. But these are proven tools. We use them not only in training. I've used them as an operations leader in my operations organizations when I'm training leaders and managers and helping them be more effective so that we could get the most out of them, right? So these are some of the tools that I incorporate and use, but also I use at management cues to train, and they're all available also on our website. So the Eisenhower matrix. So I love this tool. I also am a business professor, and I use it with my students when we're looking at different business problems in the environment. So the Eisenhower matrix is simple enough that you can bucket things. So here's how you want to think about it. Okay, in quadrant 1, okay, which is going to be your top left quadrant, you want to think about what is urgent and important. And typically what is urgent and important are things that have to do with the crisis, have deadlines, are immediate problems, and have to be done today. Meaning if it doesn't happen today, the company is gonna go bankrupt, we're gonna lose revenue, people are going to get fired, safety is compromised, right? There's severe consequences to not doing it. Okay, in quadrant 2, it's not urgent, but it's still important. Okay, so that's going to be your top right quadrant. And when we're looking at things that are important but are not urgent, we're looking at planning, strategy, team development. Those things still need to happen, but the building won't collapse if it doesn't. Right? So that you want to schedule. You want to make time for it. You want to make sure that it happens, but it doesn't have to be done this minute. And then your third quadrant is urgent, but not important, right? And you might be thinking, well, how could that be? Well, there are recurring things that are necessary for businesses to function. Those are typically in quadrant 3. But you want to bucket them out because your goal is to prioritize, right? So everything can't be a priority, because if everything is a priority, nothing is. So when you're looking at those, you're looking at interruptions, maybe meetings, maybe other priorities that can be delegated. So if they're in quadrant 3, they can 100% be delegated. If you're looking at quadrant 4, not urgent and not important, you're looking at busy work. Distractions, unproductive tasks, those you're going to delete. They're just not worth your time and perhaps not the time of your team. If you're doing this as a team brainstorm, this tool is great for that. I use it in class. I use it with teams. I use it with individuals. I use it for myself when I start to feel like there's a lot on the table and we need to make distinctions. So very great slide. I mean, you're going to get it, but you can pin this somewhere or use it to guide an exercise to help you make these distinctions. So here are some other strategic tools and frameworks, and I've included the Eisenhower matrix there for you and what its use is best for. So the Eisenhower matrix is really best for prioritizing tasks based on urgency and importance. It makes that really clear and easy to do. Time blocking. How time blocking helps you, it helps you reserve specific time blocks on your calendar for deep work, administration, or meetings that matter. So that's how you should be using your time block. Because think about it this way. If you're blocking time, but there's no priority within it, you're just creating more chaos. It's not actually being used strategically. So make sure you make distinctions when you're time blocking. And the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, that's focusing the 20% of tasks that drive 80% of the results. So think about what tasks actually make a difference, right? That's really what it's saying, and focus on those. The 2-minute rule, if it takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Okay, but if it takes more than that, put a little bit more thought into it. So that's going to at least siphon out some of the tasks and differentiate between what you can hand off. The ABCDE method, that's ranking tasks based on importance. And the ranking starts with A being critical and E being eliminate. So you can also do it that way. I always keep in mind that managers, like anybody else, learn in different ways and have different systems that work for them and different tools that are effective for them. Test them and see what's the best fit for you, for your work style, for your communication style, for your personality style, but find something that you can use to help you guide the process. If you're just doing it in your head, I promise you it's not good enough. It's not. Okay, neuroscience inspired habits. So now that we learned a little bit about the effects that prioritization and time management has on our brain, there are specific things you can do to mitigate the risk of you being ineffective, burning out, or having a burning out and having extensive cognitive overload. So you want to look at daily prioritization rituals. Start each day by identifying your top 1 to 3 priorities and leave it from 1 to 3. Don't go more than that. Start with strategy. Make sure you're reserving time each week to reflect, reset, and plan. Your strategic muscle is worth more than your execution muscle, especially as you move up the ladder. Task batching. Group similar tasks together to reduce context switching. Okay, so learn to segment your tasks. Peak performance scheduling. Do your most cognitively demanding work during your peak energy hours. Out of curiosity, because I pay attention to these things, I pay attention to these things also when I'm mentoring, coaching, and developing other managers and leaders. In chat, can you put for me, what do you think your peak performance hours are? As I mentioned, my peak performance hours are probably between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. are when I'm the most productive, the most creative, the most energized around anything. That's also when I think the clearest, I feel like. Cognitive breaks. Step away for 5 to 10 minutes every 60 to 90 minutes to refresh your mental focus. I used to do this as an operations leader, and I could tell you the value was unparalleled. I would set up my timers and literally would get up 5 to 10 minutes, would walk around in after 60 to 90 periods of work. It makes your mind reset. It forces that cognitive load to kind of reset. So critical. And I've seen very few people do it. I've seen a lot of CEOs do it. I haven't seen a lot of managers do it. So keep that in mind. And feel free in chat to list your peak performance hours. Again, I'm just curious about how relevant that is and whether that's something you consider. Okay, so we're going to take 10 seconds and you are going to quietly, okay, as part of a live case study and planning function, you're going to list your 3 top priorities right now within 10 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set the timer. And you don't have to report anything, so don't worry, you're not going to have to share any of this. It's an exercise, so I encourage you to participate in private on your own confidentially. I'm going to set the timer to 10 seconds now. List your top 3 priorities for today. Okay, so that was, here we go. We're at 7 seconds, it looks like. Okay, and there's our timer. So what I want you to think about is whether you were clear on the 3 priorities. Did those 3 priorities come straight away to mind? Or were you fumbling to think about what your 3 priorities were? Okay, so let's explore that a little bit more. And thank you for participating if you did it on your end, right? Something to consider today as you're thinking about your workflow and time prioritization. How did you do with that little short, brief life case study? Were you able to list your top 3 priorities in the time provided? And that's yes or no, right? It was only 10 seconds. It was brief. Are you clear on what your top 3 priorities for the day should be? Okay, so let's continue to explore these areas. But this is a very quick exercise. You can do it with your team, and it'll also show you where their mindset's at and whether they're clear on what their top 3 priorities should be. Okay, let's keep going. So, leading by example plays a critical role with time management and prioritization. Okay, part of it is showing others how to do it so that as a unit, we're functioning cohesively, effectively, and our time focus is appropriate. So you want to model purposeful prioritization. So if as managers, we're struggling to prioritize, we can't clearly communicate our top 3 for the day, for example, right? Just like the exercise we just did. If we are trying to do everything at once and we don't use a tool like the Eisenhower matrix or a system to help us show that we prioritize time, how will others, right? So it's things that we have to think about because sometimes we're shooting ourselves in the foot because we haven't taken the time to show others how it should be done, right? And we don't know how to do it. You want to set boundaries that empower but don't isolate. Boundaries should be healthy. They should lend to impact, not take away from it, right? So lead effective meetings. Stop having ineffective meetings or just going with the flow, right? Because those are the things that limit impact and exhaust us. They're draining, right? Coach on time, not just tasks, right? So the coaching is like the reflection. It has to be part of the time that you spend building up your unit, right? And enriching your own knowledge and experience around relationship building. Reflect and adjust openly. If you're using the Eisenhower matrix, for example, and you're using it once a month with your team, once a quarter, however you want to do it, you're taking that time to adjust openly and be in sync and prioritize, right? But when you don't have a tool and you don't take the time, that never happens. You just continue to operate in the same ineffective way until you don't care anymore. And it's just how we do things. And everybody that's ever worked with me knows how much I hate that phrase. It's just how we do things. It's the most ineffective response to anything happening in the workforce. So here are your key takeaways for today. Time is a leadership tool. Use it strategically. Busy does not equal effective. Prioritize with purpose. Plan proactively, not perfectly. Planning is not about it being perfect. Protect your cognitive energy. Your energy, your mental capacity, capability, and energy is critical to how effective you are as a manager and a leader. Your time habits shape team culture. Keep that in mind. Hold yourself accountable. If you don't know how to use these tools, learn and practice or get additional training. Okay. And then help your team do the same. Help them understand how valuable their time is. Reflect and adjust regularly. Time management is not about perfection. It's about doing the right things. You don't need more hours. You need more intention. Okay. We all get the same amount of time. We all get the same amount of time, no matter what, no matter who you are. Okay. So with that said, and right before we close it out, I'll open it up to any comments, questions, or feedback. So let me know in chat, or feel free to unmute if you have anything that you'd like to share before I go ahead and close it out. And I'll take a look in on our YouTube channel to see if anybody has any questions. Okay, and it looks like we don't have any questions on our YouTube feed. Are there any questions here or anything that you'd like to share about what we just went over? I'll give you a second before I move on to the next slide. Okay, and it looks like we have some chat, so let me see here. Okay, no questions, but thank you and a happy face. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had some nuggets to take away. Like I mentioned, we will be sharing both the deck and the checklist for you to audit yourself slowly, or maybe even audit some team members or share it with some other managers. It's all for whatever use benefits you the most. So with that said, I'll go ahead and close it out. So like I mentioned, we provide training and support resources. We really focus on things that work and tools that make training easier, make communication easier, and make managers more effective. You'll receive a copy of the webinar deck, and you'll also have links to some of the things that we're doing right now, trainings that are available online, our management planner, our case studies, our client neuroscience studies. If you're curious about what we were able to prove and what we did, check those out. And if you want to talk to me and talk about some of the things that we do and how we can help you, you can schedule a free consultation anytime. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And as of late, we just rolled out some amazing membership programs that make training and development that works. Super accessible, super affordable for individual managers, for entire management teams and companies, and for executives who are interested. So make sure you check those out. And with that said, thank you so much. I hope that this was impactful, that it helps you with your time management and prioritization. And if you have a question, email me. I'm happy to answer a question for you. Okay. With that said, have an amazing Monday and kick butt out there.